Assalamualaikum and a very good day to our lecturer. Today our group will be presenting our study entitled to Demographic Change and Household Structure in Kampung Nombor, Kuching. Before discussing our findings, I would like to briefly introduce the study, where the demography refers to the population characteristics and changes including the age structure, gender compositions, fertility, mortality, migration and dependency ratio, which we have included in the slides later on. Also, to me, understanding these demographic factors is important because they help us identify population trends and their impacts on community and social development. Basically, this study was conducted in Kampung Nombor, Kuching, specifically covering Kampung Nombor 1 until Kampung Nombor 6. The area is a traditional Malay settlement located within the urban surroundings of Kuching. Although it is influenced by urban development, the community still maintains many traditional, social, and cultural characteristics. The main objective of these studies was to analyze the demographic characteristic and household structure of the community. Specifically, we examined the population composition by age and gender, household size, fertility changes, mortality patterns and migration patterns, and also dependency ratio. We also aim to understand how these demographic changes may affect family structure, also economic activities and community development. So, in order to achieve these objectives, primary data were collected through questionnaires and interviews involving 10 selected households, while secondary data were obtained from sources such as Department of Statistics Malaysia and academic journals. I will now pass the presentation to my group member to explain the methodology.
Next, I will present methodology applied in this study to ensure that the research objectives are achieved. The chosen research design is a descriptive, qualitative study. Moving on the selection of respondents, this study involves 10 households as our primary subject. All of these respondents were carefully selected using purposive sampling technique to ensure that the data obtained perfectly aligns with the criteria and focus of our research. Next, there are two types of data that we use in this study. First, primary data, which was obtained directly from the interviewer respondent. Second is secondary data, which was through official reference data from DOSM, Department of Statistics Malaysia, as well as literary review from relevant academic journals. Third is data collection method. There are three main methods in this data collection. Firstly is distributing survey questionnaire. Second is conducting face-to-face interviews with the respondent to gain deeper insight. And third is carrying out over session during fireworks. Together, this method ensures that the collecting data is comprehensive and mutually supportive. To conclude the methodology session, I will pass to the next presentation. Thank you.
I will present the finding on population structure, which help us understand the community composition based on size, age, gender, and growth pattern. This is a key part of demography and human development, and it changes over time due to fertility, mortality, and immigration. For this study, Primary data was collected from 10 households and the total population recorded was 48 individuals. Population age structure is divided into 3 standard groups. The age composition in Kampung Nombor is as follows: children 4 people, working age 32 people, elderly 12 people. For the gender composition, out of the 48 individuals, there are 23 males and 25 females. This indicates a well-balanced gender distribution. In summary, the population structure in Kampung Nombor shows that the majority are working age adult, while the elderly population is relatively high. The number of children is small and the gender ratio is well balanced. This characteristic align with the general population trends seen in Kuching district and Sarawak state. Next, population pyramids of the study area. Based on the data, the population pyramid here is the tower type, which show the characteristic of a mature and aging population. I will explain each section by section. 0 until 14 years, the lower section of the pyramid is relatively narrow. This shows a low birth rate and there is only a small proportion of children and young population in this community. 15 to 64 years, the middle section is the widest and most dominant part. This confirms that the majority of residents belong to the working age group. 65 years and above, the upper section remains quite wide. This indicates that many people live to old age and shows that this area is aging. Next, the average household size is calculated by dividing the total household population by the total numbers of households, which gives us a result of 4.8 people per household. This value indicates that the household size in Kampung Nombor is relatively large, which may be influenced by the local community cultural practice of maintaining extended family arrangement and living together in one household. Other than that, the number of children within a household is used as an indicator of fertility level. The results state the total numbers of children born was 40. Meanwhile, the number of children aged 0 until 14 years who were still living in the household was only 4. This is because many younger family members have migrated out of the area for employment or educational purposes. Last but not least, let's move on to mortality patterns. Based on the findings, 6 out of 10 households had experienced the death of family members within the past 5 years, while the remaining 4 households had no recorded cases of death. The main causes of death reported were age-related health conditions, including lung disease, intestinal disorder, and cancer.
Next, I will present on migration pattern. Based on the finding, migration mainly occurred by 2 purposes, which is employment and education. From our finding, there are a total of 14 people who migrate for job opportunities. Meanwhile, there are 3 people who migrate for education purpose. Most of those who migrate move to urban area, such as Kota Samarhan and Peninsula Malaysia, for better employment and higher salary. There are also a few of our respondents migrate to Australia for work. For education, most students continue their study at UNIMAS. This study also found that there are a small number of respondents practice dual residency, which means they work outside the study area but they return to their hometown regularly, especially during the holiday and the weekend. In summary, migration in the study area mainly involve younger people seeking better opportunity in employment and also education. Next, I will present on dependency ratio of the study. Based on the population distribution, there was 1 person aged 0 to 14 years old, 38 people aged 15 to 64 years old, and 9 people aged 65 years old and above. The youth dependency ratio was 2.63, which means that for every 100 working age people, there were 3 young dependents. Other than that, for the old age dependency ratio, there was 23.68, meaning that for every 100 working age people, there were about 24 elderly dependents. The total dependence ratio was 26.32, which showed that there were about 26 dependents for every 100 working age people. So overall, from our finding, this show that the study area has relatively low dependency burden. However, the number of elderly dependent is much higher than young dependent, which means that this is toward aging population.
Hi, now I want to move to the next section. For these sections, I will present the discussion and findings of our study on demographics change and household structure in Kampung Nombor, Kuching, Sarawak. Firstly, our study found that Kampung Nombor is experiencing an aging population trends. The number of elderly residents is relatively high compared to the number of children. This shows that the population is gradually become older. Secondly, we found declining young populations. There are only a small number of the children living in the household surveyed. This may indicate lower birth rates and the migrations of young families to another areas. Thirdly, there is a high migration among youth. Many young adults move to the urban area, such as Kota Semarahan and Peninsula Malaysia, for the better job opportunity and higher education. These migrations contribute to the decrease in the young populations within the village. Another important findings in the increasing elderly dependency, since the elderly population is growing, the working age populations may need to provide more financial and social support in the future. Finally, despite migrations, we found that family attachment remains strong. Some residents practiced dual residency, where they worked outside the village, but still returns regularly to to visits and support their families. Finding and discussion also found that future challenges, which is aging pollution, higher healthcare costs, smaller workforce, and rural depopulation. Next to impacts, this demographic change may create survival impacts on the community. Firstly, there may be a labor shortage because many young and productive individuals have migrated to the urban area. Secondly, the village may experience an increased demands of healthcare services due to the growing elderly pollution. Lastly, there may be reduced youth participations in village activities and community development programs, which could impact the long-term sustainability of the community. In conclusion, this finding shows that Kampung Nombor is facing demographic changes characteristic by population aging, youth migrations, and changing household structure. These trends may be influence the future social and economic development in the community.
Now, I will be presenting the conclusion part of our study, where our study has successfully analyzed the demographic characteristics and household structure of Kampung Nombor in Kuching. Based on the findings, from the 10 households that we managed to compile, several important demographic trends were identified. The study found that the community is experiencing an aging population with a relatively high proportion of elderly residents and a declining young population. Most residents belong to the working age group, while the number of children living in their area is relatively low. Migration was also identified as a major demographic factor, where many younger residents migrate to urban areas and other regions for better employment opportunities and higher education. As a result, the village may face challenges such as a declining young population and a reduced labor force in the future. In addition, the dependency ratio analysis showed that the burden of dependency comes mainly from the elderly population rather than children itself. This indicates that working-age adults may face a greater responsibilities in supporting aging family members in the future. Overall, I believe the demographic changes are influencing the household structure and future development of Kampung Nombor. Therefore, the efforts such as improving employment opportunities, strengthening healthcare services, and encouraging youth participation in community activities development are important to ensure the long-term sustainability of the community. Thank you, and I believe that concludes all of our presentation.